Hi there, my name is Stephanie Disbury. Welcome to my blog page. I'm a secondary school maths teacher in Scotland and well, this is me and here's some of the work that my pupils have been doing over the last year. One of the things that I wanted to address this year was using assessment for learning, using AIFL principles and practices from the books that I've read, from the comments that I've read and from suggestions from other teachers that I've been working with and talking with. One of the things that I tried to do this year was have a look at assessment as learning. Following assessments in class, which we've used for summative purposes, I've handed back assessments and asked the pupils to create a set of best solutions. These solutions have been done in groups so that they can talk with each other, talk their way through problems that they've had, common mistakes and errors, and to really find the best way to produce an answer, to communicate it, and to make sure that they're including all of the points that could be assessed. This has followed on into my classroom practice when we work together on harder problems or on longer tasks, where I ask the pupils really to think about what they're writing down for me, what they are trying to communicate, and what it is that they're trying to tell us in a solution, rather than just looking for the correct answer at the end. I think that having the best solutions up on the wall so that the pupils can see them when they're in the classroom helps them to remember that the work that they do is actually appreciated. It helps them to remember that every piece of work they do or they complete in class is for their own benefit. And hopefully that helps them to take pride in their work and make sure that each and every piece is as good as it can be. The next few slides are distance time graphs that the pupils produced as part of their topic on speed distance time. The work is, for this class in particular, very easy and straightforward. However, what we did is we went out onto the playing fields at school and we actually timed, or we let the pupils time themselves walking down the running track or running down the running track or walking backwards or crawling, kneeling, hopping, skipping. They did all sorts. They used their imaginations and they worked out 2 different times, one for walking down the track normally and one for doing something else. When they plot these 2 graphs together, of course, you can see the difference in the speed, and this creates a good discussion about the distance time graph and the relation to speed that it actually shows us. Again, although the maths was straightforward for this class, I do feel that it helps them to remember the relationship between these things, and hopefully it could help in other curriculum areas. I've only taught non-right angled trig a few times with classes, but I've always found that they find it very difficult to remember which formula to use when. With some classes it's a little easier because they can understand that if they just try one, if it doesn't work, they can try again. Other pupils in particular will be able to look at these diagrams and understand exactly which formula they should be using first. So as part of a revision topic with a class, I asked them to create some sort of visual aid which would help them to remember which formula to use. I particularly like the imaginative poem that one of the groups actually came up with. It says 2 lengths with an angle between, the cosine rule is the one you mean. 3 sides and nothing more, use the cosine rule and you will score. An angle opposite 2 known sides, the sine rule's what you should decide. If you spy area on the line, use the area rule and you'll be fine. I hope it helped them in the exam at the end of the day, but certainly it helped the pupils to focus on the formula that we're trying to learn and the rules which determine which formula to actually use each time. On top of that, we tried to explain, or I tried to make sure that they understood that even if they used the wrong one to begin with, they would understand why it was the wrong formula and they would be able then to choose the correct one after. I think often that learning to get it wrong in maths is as important as learning to get the right answer. I took some pictures of my pupils working along in the computing labs this year. The first set are my 3rd year class who were learning about personal finance. It's a package that they received from the Royal Bank of Scotland a while ago, And what it does is it creates a high street for the pupils to walk along. They have to choose which direction to go in order to find out information. Some of the topics covered are booking a holiday, your earnings at your first job, buying a car, renting a flat, and household bills. It's a fantastic opportunity for them to really immerse themselves into the reality. It's a great way for them to go exploring these topics by themselves, and it helps them to understand a little bit of what will be expected once they are out there in the real world. One of the benefits of this package is the fact that it's not all reading. A lot of the information that they're given is orally through conversations that they will have with video clips on screen. The pupils normally wear headphones when they're using this resource so that they can listen to what people are telling them and try and understand the information. There are tests at the end. Unfortunately, a lot of my pupils managed to skip over them and weren't all that bothered when they scored nothing by doing so. However, I do feel that the purpose of this is to raise awareness of what could happen, raise awareness of some of the difficulties that they will face once they're out there in the real world. And I'm confident that even if they just hear some of these phrases again, that possibly they will understand that they need to take notice and that they need to try hard to understand what's happening at the time. We spent about 3 hours on the computers completing this task. I'm pleased to say that for the majority of that, the pupils forgot that Internet Explorer was on their computers, and they did manage to focus on the task very well. At the end of each section, we did come together and have a chat about it as a class, trying to work out what they had learned through the lesson. When they put their experiences together, it seemed to be a very comprehensive package. My second year class were given one of the Boland Maths projects to complete. We looked at the water availability topic, which introduced them to the ideas of population, population spread, employment, water availability, and how water is used in different countries. It was quite an analytical task, and they worked together in groups. They had to discuss the needs of 3 different countries. So each person in a group of 3 had to argue for a separate country for funding for better water supplies. This was a whole lot more than just maths work for them. They had to learn how to formulate an argument, how to create a discussion in their groups, and how to make a decision. It was fascinating to watch how some of the more confident pupils in maths started to take more of a back seat when it came to producing a good argument orally. The pupils' reaction to this task was a little bit mixed. As a top set, what they would have preferred is to be given the information and to have sat down and done some practice on it themselves. I suspect a lower set would have found the maths far more difficult and possibly not accessible, but certainly they would have enjoyed the more practical approach, the more lifelike approach to the situation. A complete change of scene and change of pace for the last few slides then. Back in June, we took a group of first and second year pupils to Badagush, an outdoor centre near Aviemore. We stayed in self-catering lodges and took part in a ropes challenge. We took part in canoeing, mountain biking, and a junior orienteering challenge as well. Badagush is a site outside of Aviemore. It's quite a large site. It has lots of adventure playground equipment, lots of open space, and the pupils thoroughly appreciated this. Whilst they weren't allowed to just run free, they were certainly allowed to play on the equipment, and that's exactly what they did. All too often we see pupils trying to grow up far too quickly in high school. So what the most fascinating part of this trip for us as staff was to see these pupils outside having fun and playing, really acting just like children, which is exactly what they should be doing at that age. In addition to that though, the challenges themselves proved fascinating as well. Some of the quiet pupils were flying up these ropes, no problem at all. some of the more confident pupils really needed encouragement and needed to be pushed to take the challenges. Physically and mentally, I think the pupils were challenged all weekend. They certainly learned a lot about working together, about encouraging each other, and about having good fun. We had a cracking weekend. I think with regards to outdoor education, it's also an opportunity for pupils and staff to see each other in a completely different light. It's not common, I don't suppose, for pupils and staff to play together, but when it comes to canoeing or biking, or even the high ropes assault course, you really have to work together regardless of who you're working with. And I think the pupils appreciate the fact that we put on harnesses and wetsuits and have a good time as well. For us, it helps us to see how the pupils are interacting outside the classroom. When we see them for 45 minutes each day, I think it's difficult to understand what these people are really like, especially if they're part of a class which perhaps requires more behaviour management, or a class which doesn't work, which doesn't gel together quite as well as others. Thankfully, the pupils that we had with us were all incredibly well behaved. They really took on the spirit of the weekend and helped us all to have a fantastic time. Back to the classroom now. I've always found that teaching volume to pupils is a concept that they struggle to understand. The reason I think they find it hard to understand is from the evidence that they provide when it comes to recalling facts about volume. They struggle to remember that the formula is length times breadth times height. They often get it confused with the area formula, and to me that simply implies a lack of understanding rather than a lack of mathematical ability. So this lesson grew from nothing, to be honest. I handed out 1 centimetre cube blocks to help pupils understand the relationship between the formula and what they're actually looking at. Something concrete for them to hold on, evidence of what I was actually talking about, if you like. And we looked at conservation of volume by using these blocks at their tables. I looked around the classroom at one point and spotted that they had, a few of them had water bottles on the tables, and one of the aims of the lesson that day had been to realise that 1 millilitre equals 1 cubic centimetre. So using the blocks that they had, I asked them to try and work out the volume of their water bottles. Now they could all see on the bottles that they were 500 millilitres, and what we tried to do was get them to count up, or not tried to, what I asked them to do was work out the volume in cubic centimetres. What I hoped for was that this practical activity would help to engage their knowledge. It would help them to remember the task and therefore remember the fact, have something to link the fact to, some memory to link the fact to in the future. I was absolutely amazed when they started using the blocks to measure by trying to recreate the bottle with the blocks. They recognised straight away that one of those big coloured blocks is about 8 centimetres cubed, and they started building up. They started asking me for more materials, they started asking me for resources, and they came up with fantastic answers. I think the two closest that we had were about 512 and 460 centimetres cubed, which was absolutely fantastic. The best thing is really the use of the blocks came entirely from the pupils. You can see from the pictures different ways of building things up, and it really did come entirely from them. I didn't direct them into using the blocks to work out the volume as such. I really enjoyed this lesson, but I sometimes wish that I could plan these things instead of hoping that they grow organically, as this one did. Thankfully this one all turned out well. So that's some of the things that have gone on in my classroom this year, and out of it, as you can see. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm quite determined not to go back and edit this in any way at all. So if some of it is a bit and I can only apologise. This is my first shot at some sort of audio blogging. Let me know what you think, please. Feel free to leave me comments, good or bad, and hopefully this will be the start of something new. Thanks for listening.